Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the NARALO Monthly Teleconference on Monday, the 11th of July, 2022. On today's call, we currently have Eduardo Diaz, Glenn McKnight, Alfredo Calderon, Bill Juris, Claire Craig, David Mackey, Denise Huckbaum, Gordon Chilcott. One minute. Judith Hellerstein, Jose Lebron, June Perez, Kenneth Herman, Marita Moll, Roberto Gaetano. We have received no apologies from staff today. We do have Sylvia Levanco, Barry Cupp, Negar Farzinnia, Giovani Seppia, Chantal Dirksen, Josie McGinty, Nayela Saris, and myself, Priscilla Snyder, on call management. A friendly reminder to please state your name before speaking. And with this, I will turn the meeting back over to Eduardo Diaz. Please begin, Eduardo.
Thank you, Michelle. This is Eduardo for the record, and welcome everyone to today's call. We have about 4 things to do before getting to the presentations. And the first one is that there is a new member in IA's team, in the Global Stakeholder Engagement for North America. Her name is Josie McKinty, probably pronouncing it wrong, but I'm going to let Naya present her, and so everybody knows who she is. She's going to be part of. We're going to see her more often in our meetings. So Naya, please.
Indeed. Thank you, Eduardo. You said it right. It's Josie McKenzie, and she is our newest team member working with the North America Global Stakeholder Engagement team. So that makes 3 of us that we will be working with your team with NARALO on a regular basis. So myself, Joseph Catafano, and Josie. So between the 3 of us, we will be interacting with you. Josie joined our team about 2 months ago, I think I believe in May. She comes to us with a lot of experience working in multinational organizations, most recently at United Health. Josie is Brazilian by nationality, so she is fluent both in Portuguese and in English. She has already made an impact. She's been working with us on organizing some of our events and getting ourselves organized with some of the meetings that we're looking to have going forward. So we're really happy to have Josie with us. I don't know if Josie is available to just say hello and maybe just show up on video very quickly, but I just wanted to make sure that this community is familiar that we also have Josie, and they'll be hearing from her on a regular basis as well as they do from myself and Joe. That's it. Josie, are you there to give us a hello?
Yeah, hi, I'm here. Can everybody hear me?
We can see you and we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you, Layla, for the introduction. Yeah, I've been with ICANN for 2 months now. I'm glad to be part of the team, and to get to work with all of you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So welcome to ICANN, Josie, and so I'm pretty sure we'll see each other in other meetings as well. So the next 2 items will be covered by Glenn. We have a new individual member, unaffiliated, which we don't use. Most of you know that we are working on the rules of procedures for NARALO, and the word unaffiliated for individual members is going to go away, because anyone can be an individual member, even if you are a member of an ALS, and that will be one of the changes in our rules of procedure. We will receive some information offline in the future on that. So, Glenn, can you take it over?
Yeah, thank you. Welcome everybody on a nice summer day. Jason, I don't know Jason personally, but Jason is a former ICANN fellow. And in fact, I hate to do this, but Alfredo actually was his mentor. So I hate to do this, Alfredo, but can you say a few words about Jason? I've interacted very briefly with him. We processed his application, but Alfredo, do you have anything that you know about him, about his professional background and what he does?
Sure. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Sorry if I don't use my video. I'm not in conditions for that. But anyway, so this is Alfredo for the record. Jason, as Glenn mentioned, was one of my mentees for ICANN 73. He has been involved in various fellowship programs besides ICANN. He's a young individual that is interested in contributing to the internet governance ecosystem in various areas. If I recall correctly, Jason is working on his graduate work as well, besides participating in other organizations as an active member. Back to you, Glenn.
Yes, thank you. And that's basically it for me. So we welcome Jason, and he says he actually, I recall a while ago, he was interested in volunteering, helping us with our GA. So I'll reach out to him as well. So I guess I'll go right into the next section. I was hoping to have from Anthony's friend, Claire, a detailed slideshow, but they did complete it for today. I'll be sharing it as soon as I get it. He'll be using it for his tribute. So many of you may have recalled meeting Anthony. You probably met him. This picture is actually taken from our Atlas Institute in London a number of years ago, I believe 2014. Correct me on that date. So, Eduardo, what was the date for the Atlas Institute in London?
I don't actually remember. That was a few years ago.
Yeah, a few years ago. So Anthony was one of the performers. This is a world-class Buddhist. He is a Ojibwe from Winnipeg. He was a member of Telecommunications Canada, which Marita was deeply involved with. He was an NARALO member. I heard roughly almost 2 weeks ago through Marita saying he was ill and that he was suffering from COVID. And a few days later he passed away. So he passed away on June 30th in 2022. So our thoughts are with his family, and we wish his family well. So I hope to have a little bit more information for you, which details the slideshow very soon. So we wanted to take this minute to recognize Anthony's contribution to NARALO, his life, and his contribution. So thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you for that. Yeah, I remember Anthony. I mentored him briefly in one of those meetings that I think the first meeting that I came in, and he was a very gentle fellow, and he played the flute, and he played for us in academic Atlas many years ago. So we feel sorry seeing him gone. So let's go to the next item. Thank you, Glenn. So now we are going to see two presentations today on the multi-stakeholderism model in ICANN. From the ICANN implementation team, we have Negar Farzinnia. She's the ICANN Director of Implementation Operations, and Giovani Seppia, VP of the same department. And then we will see here Marita Moll, which is a NARALO ALAC representative at the moment, and she's very involved with this implementation and the multi-stakeholderism model in ICANN. And we will try to see different views, one from the ICANN side and the end user side, and we'll have at the end we'll have a discussion. So bring the questions. The last part will be moderated by Glenn, and then I think this will be a very good presentation to see and discuss at the end. Okay, so Negar, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Actually, let me turn it over to Giovani to take us off in this presentation. And if you can also pull up the slide deck, please, that would be great. Giovani, over to you, please.
Thank you, Negar, and thank you, everybody. Thank you for having us during today's meeting. Indeed, today we're going to have this presentation about enhancing the effectiveness of ICANN multi-stakeholder model, which is a project that the implementation operations department is leading and is a project owned by the ICANN board, which we provide support. Just for your information, the implementation operations department is quite a brand new department created at ICANN to support and coordinate the implementation of specific reviews, board-approved non-policy recommendations, as well as to support and coordinate other projects like this project about the enhancing the effectiveness of ICANN multi-stakeholder model. So if we can move to the next slide, please. Today's presentation is divided into three parts. The first part is about where we stand with the multi-stakeholder, enhancing the effectiveness of ICANN multi-stakeholder model project. The second part will focus on the 6 priority topics and the community input. Those 6 priority topics were identified through community consultations in the preparation of this paper that was released by ICANN 3 years ago. And this paper is, in fact, named Enhancing the Effectiveness of ICANN Multi-Stakeholder Model. Those 6 priority topics and the projects and initiatives that are part of each topic are those topics and initiatives and projects that are deemed to affect, impact the evolution of ICANN Multi-Stakeholder Model. And the last part is about the evaluation methodology that we are going to apply to those projects and initiatives so that we can see where there could be some gaps that need to be fixed to make sure that there is a continuous evolution of the ICANN multi-stakeholder model. This is going to be an interactive session. So apart from the polls that we are going to have, we really look forward to have an interactive discussion with you, and we thank you in advance for any possible input that you are giving us for this project. Yes, Negar will touch base on the question that Glenn has just put in the chat. We have some ice-breaking polls to start with, so if we can go to the very first ice-breaking poll.
Great.
Well, wow, we got 2 polls in a shot. Okay. Yes, so we start with the first one, and it's an ice-breaking poll, so it's not a serious one. So it's the kind of pizza you like most, and we have 4 choices. So please cast your preference, just getting the first poll. So I guess they can cast their preference. Am I right?
Correct.
Okay. So if you just can cast your preference for the first ice-breaking poll, and then you submit it. Can they do so?
Yes, one moment here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We can't submit. We need to answer all the questions.
Yeah. That's what I was fearing.
Okay, one moment, I apologize.
It's okay.
Okay, I do see people are submitting. Okay. Here.
That's a long poll.
Well, the plan The plan was to have two ice-breaking polls at the start and then to have the other polls during the presentation.
Yep. So please don't answer any of the other polls, just the first two, please. Thank you.
But you can't submit if you just enter the two first. Sorry.
Okay. I do have people answering. I do have quite a few.
Okay, if you do not have any favorite pizza among the four, or if you do not have any favorite movie among the five that are shown, well, just think about, let's say, the nearest favorite.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and the poll here in just a moment. Thank you, everyone.
Well, this is really, we couldn't answer. I couldn't answer. I trying to answer all 8 of them, and there's no time, and you can't submit without it.
Thank you, Judith. If you could just get the first two, and I
can't submit. You can only submit after you answer all 10 questions.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. I do apologize. Okay, thank you. 1 moment.
So you should take it down and redo it because we can't submit it.
Okay, thank you. 1 moment.
Well, we can do this and we can continue.
I think only the Canadians answered Hawaiian. I don't think anyone else in the world is Hawaiian pizza.
Okay, in the interest of time, let's acknowledge that we have 3 favorite pizzas in any case. Nobody likes cheese, apparently. And eventually we can even see that the Lord of the Rings was...
well, actually, no. Top Gun, but there's a lot of people, the polls are faulty, so I just think to skip it because we can't answer it.
Okay, so we just wrap up the ice-breaking polls like this, and then with that said, I leave the floor back to Negar for continuing the presentation. Thank you. And if we can put the polls down, please. Can we? Okay. So Negar, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Giovani. Yes, I think you definitely broke the ice. That was one way to do it, so we're set to go. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for having us here today to present a little bit about the MSM project and where we stand. My name is Negar Farzinnia. I'm a member of the Implementation Operations team, as Eduardo Conley introduced, and I oversee the enhancing the effectiveness of ICANN's Multi-Stakeholder Model project, or in simple terms known as MSM. Because that's a lot of words. Let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. As some of you may recall, our former board chair, Shireen Shalaby, kicked off this project in February of 2019. The board's attention to this project grew out of our work on ICANN's strategic plan for FY 21 through 25. During the trend identification exercise we held to help inform our strategic plan, it became clear that continued evolution of ICANN's multi-stakeholder model and the challenges the model faces were really an important priority for much of our community. This dialogue continued in 2019 with cross-community sessions at every ICANN meeting, as well as webinars and public comment periods, which were all independently facilitated. That phase of the work concluded and resulted in a draft work plan, which was included as part of the public comment proceedings on ICANN's 5-year operating plan. The board reviewed those comments and incorporated them into a revised work plan that was then further discussed with the community. Finally, in October of 2020, the final version of this work plan was presented to the board, and in November 2020, the implementation design phase of the MSM project officially started. Let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So 5 months of facilitated discussions, 6 webinars, and 3 public comments later, a total of 6 overarching issues emerged as those which are hindering the effectiveness of ICANN's multi-stakeholder model the most. Community then further prioritized 3 of these 6 issues for a more immediate term implementation. To be clear, the goal is to address all 6 issues, but in the interest of the bandwidth of the community, of the org, of the board, we prioritize the issues so that we can effectively address them in a more efficient manner. Now, to better determine how each of these issues could be addressed, there were further discussions held with the community, which identified a number of activities and projects that were then underway within the community, the org, and/or the board that could address these issues. The discussions with the community also identified some gap areas that need to be addressed in order to cohesively alleviate the issues that have been identified. We will discuss these 6 overarching issues and the identified projects a little later in the presentation. Let's go to the next slide, please. So to summarize, the multi-stakeholder model is at the core of ICANN's operating model. It is in fact so important. It is one of ICANN's 5 strategic objectives. My colleagues, the implementation operations function of ICANN org, we manage this critical project and contribute to ICANN org achieving its strategic objectives. Let's go to the next slide, please. So the question becomes, how do we go about enhancing the effectiveness of ICANN's multi-stakeholder model? Because let's face it, an effective multi-stakeholder model doesn't just happen, right? It's a process that needs to be constantly evaluated and adjusted based on the changing needs of the ICANN's ecosystem. So the need to be able to make small adjustments to our business model to make it more effective really warrants a process in which the stakeholders, that means ICANN org, the board, and the community, evaluate various projects and initiatives, determine what works well, what doesn't, what changes we must make to keep improving our business model. And this is precisely why in the course of their discussions, the board, org, and community agreed on a need for an evaluation methodology that could be applied iteratively or on an as-needed basis, depending on what's being evaluated. So at a high level, the key next steps that ICANN org is working on is to evaluate a number of projects that were identified when the work plan was finalized in October of 2020, work through the findings of the evaluations and determine the impact of these projects on the multi-stakeholder model and how well they address the issues that had been identified by community, org, and board. The goal is also to investigate and evaluate other projects that were not in existence really when the finalized work plan was published in October of 2020. We will talk about all of this in a little more detail later on. This is all work in progress, but we can't do it alone. The community's involvement and input, your involvement and input, is paramount to the success of these evaluations. And rest assured that we will further engage with all of you to continue to resolve the 6 issues identified as those hindering the effectiveness of ICANN's multi-stakeholder model. Giovani, this is where we do another poll. I'll hand it over to you to see if you can continue with the polls and let me know if you want to just continue with the presentation.
And hi, Negar. And this is Michelle. Real quickly, we are trying to fix the polling. We should have all the questions. They showed up all at once. So in order for it to work properly, we might be able to do this at the end as well, but I will let you know once it is fixed.
So, Negar, in few words, we should continue the presentation now. We should have had 3 polls in a row, but we'll just skip the 3 slides with the poll number and just move to the first slide with the presentation.
Understood. That sounds great. Thank you. Let's skip a couple of slides, please. Let's move forward. Okay, I'll take over from here. Thank you very much. So as I noted just a few minutes ago, there were 6 work areas that were identified as those hindering the effectiveness of our multi-stakeholder model. Let's move to the next slide, please. And as also noted, of these 6 areas, 3 of them have been prioritized by the community for a more immediate implementation. The prioritized areas are the ones you see here highlighted in darker blue and enclosed in a red box. They are the prioritization of work and efficient use of resources, precision in scoping of work, and consensus representation and inclusivity. Next slide, please. With respect to the first work area, the community wants to work together to prioritize their work so that they can better utilize ICANN's resources. When it comes to precision in scoping of work, what we heard was that the community wants to introduce a common and disciplined approach to scoping work so that we can better improve decision-making and burnout. And last but not least, for consensus representation and inclusivity work areas, community wants to improve representation and inclusivity to reach consensus, make decisions, and deliver work on time. Let's go to the next slide and alleviate the issue areas identified. What you see on this slide are the list of those projects and initiatives that were identified back in 2020 that could help address the issue areas identified. Some of these projects are applying to multiple issue areas. For example, streamlining of reviews or PDP 3.0 were deemed to address couple of the issue areas. But all in all, if you remove all the duplicates, there are a total of 20 discrete projects and initiatives that are in various stages of work. And some of these projects and initiatives have been fully implemented, while others are in progress or are about to start. Let's go to the next slide, please. And one more. Thank you. So we do have a large number of projects that could potentially address these issues, but how do we know if they actually do? One way to address that is to evaluate them. Given the agreement amongst the stakeholders, the org, board, and community on the need to be able to evaluate projects and initiatives, ICANN org undertook designing an evaluation methodology. This process has completed now, and the resulting document is published on a dedicated wiki page that houses all of MSM related content and developments. We will share the link to that page with you. This is a public page. Everyone in the community has access to it, so you can follow up on the process and the developments that are taking place with MSM. Once you get the link, I really encourage you all to take a look at this wiki space, which we will continuously update as we make progress towards evaluating these projects. A couple of things that are worth highlighting is that, one, we value your input and engagement in this process and are planning to have dedicated engagement sessions with you and all the other constituencies at ICANN 75 to work through the evaluation of some of these projects and together analyze the results of the findings that we have. And the second thing to keep in mind is, as Joran always says, this is an evolution, not a revolution. This means that we want to achieve incremental and continuous improvements to make our business model more effective. And with that, let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So as you look through the evaluation methodology document, again, which has been posted in the wiki space and is publicly available, keep in mind that the evaluation methodology is designed to help us assess process, implementation, or even an outcome of a given project or initiative. The goal here is to think more carefully about what a project is about and how it can or should achieve its objectives. It's going to help us understand what impact a given project has on ICANN multi-stakeholders and whether we could have done things differently, more effectively, or better to achieve the intended outcome. These data points ultimately help us run our projects better in the future and will allow us to be more likely to achieve our intended objectives for our given projects. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, as you recall from the earlier slides in the presentation, we have some 20 projects that were included in the October 2020 page of the MSM project. These are projects that, when implemented, could help alleviate the issues that community identified as those hampering ICANN's multi-stakeholder model. Of these projects, we have selected 4 that we are currently evaluating. The 4 projects we've chosen are improving communications between the org and the community, consent fellowship program, and ICANN Learn. We chose these projects because they have been fully implemented and or they involve the whole community. So for first set of evaluation, it allows us to work with all of you and other constituencies within the community to really work through an evaluation of various projects and see how it works and assess the results off of it. The remaining projects that are currently not fully implemented will be evaluated once their implementation has been complete and the results of the implementation has taken effect. There are also a number of projects that have been initiated after the publication of the October 2020 paper. Some of these projects we suspect will have a really great impact on enhancing the effectiveness of ICANN's multi-stakeholder model. So we want to make sure that we don't forget about them and evaluate those projects as well. The list of the additional projects are also posted to the wiki page. So you can all see the list with a lot of details incorporating how they tie into the MSM and what the impact could be. Keep in mind that this is a living list, meaning that as we find new projects and initiatives, they'll be added to the list to be evaluated when the time is right for each of those projects. And the goal is that we can continuously assess the impact of new work on the effectiveness of MSM. Let's go to the next slide, please. And this word cloud formation really just highlights some of the projects that I was just referencing, new projects that were not part of the 2020 final paper, but they have been in effect. They are critical projects that we need to look at, we need to incorporate, and we need to at some point evaluate once their implementation has been completed. So with that, let's move on to the next slide, which I believe is about a poll. So let's bypass that as well. Okay. And last but not least, let's talk about our next steps. So where are we at and what are our next steps? As I noted, ICANN has completed the design of the evaluation methodology. The evaluation methodology is posted to the wiki space, and it is accessible to all and available for everyone to look at. We're currently in the midst of evaluating 4 of the projects that I just talked about. And our goal is to share the findings from the evaluation of these projects with you later this year. More importantly, we are planning a number of hands-on engagement sessions with you and other constituencies at ICANN 75 on the MSM, the projects that we are undertaking for evaluation, and the next steps. So please stay tuned. For more information on this, you will see a lot more invitation or information about the engagement sessions we're planning with the digest and various methods of communication. So stay tuned for more information on that and how we will continue to carry this important initiative forward. With that, let me pause here. That's the end of our presentation to see if there are any questions we can address and see what the dialogue is like with everyone.
Negar, it's Giovanni. I understand that the polls are ready to be shown one by one. So we are happy to collect questions now or to start with the polls.
Actually, Giovanni, why don't we go ahead and see the polls and then start with the questions after?
Okay, the first number 3 is up. Number 1, think about the topic of this webinar. What's your level of understanding on the topic? That's a single choice. First, I'm completely new. 2, I have some basic knowledge. 3, I have some solid knowledge. And lastly, I'm an expert. Pick one.
All right, we'll just give it a few more seconds. Thank you, everyone. And I'm going to stop in the poll in 3, 2, 1, and I'll share the results.
Okay, thank you. Looks like we are a good group with good knowledge on the subject. So if we can move to the next poll, which is about the action that should be associated with the multi-stakeholder model. So it's poll number 4. So what action do you think is the most appropriate for ICANN's multi-stakeholder model? So it's enhancing, preserving, evolving, redesigning. Tell us what you think should be the action best associated with the ICANN multi-stakeholder model.
And I'm ending the poll in 3, 2, 1. One moment.
Okay, evolving. That's quite interesting because we had a similar poll with in other contexts, including during a board presentation and workshop, and also during the ICANN 74 prep week. And indeed, evolving seems to be the preferred choice. Just to remind you that the original paper, the one that we have shown the cover during one of the slides, was about enhancing the effectiveness of ICANN multi-stakeholder model. In this case, there is a preference for evolving the ICANN multi-stakeholder model. So thanks again for expressing your preference. If we move to the poll number 5, and your relation with the ICANN multi-stakeholder model, your engagement, do you feel as a proactive participant who regularly contributes to ICANN's work, an active participant who provides input upon request, a passive participant who enjoys the ICANN framework as a spectator? The polls are anonymous.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to close the poll in 3, 2, 1.
Okay, that's great. So there's nobody who comes to ICANN meetings and sleep at the end of the room. So that's very good. We move to now poll number 6, which is about the 6 priority areas that Negar went through. and those were prioritized at the time the whole exercise started, and we are asking you to rank again the top 3. So the 6 areas are prioritization of the work and efficient use of resources, precision in scoping the work, consensus, representation and inclusivity, complexity of the tools to access information and data and content, culture, trust and silos, and roles and responsibilities.
You want us to rank, but there is a unique choice.
Okay. So this should have been, yeah, the top 3. So, okay, let's go. Let's simplify the process. Sorry about that. Can we do a quick fix? Okay, it's okay.
One moment.
It's okay.
Okay, one moment.
Okay, that's another poll. That's poll number 7, and the poll number 7 is about the various projects and initiatives that support the multi-stakeholder environment, which is the area you would suggest ICANN ecosystem to work more on, making information more accessible, further supporting diversity and inclusivity, further empowering the next generation of internet users to participate in the model. This is a single choice poll, so please express your preference. Thank you.
Giovani, this is Eduardo. When you show the results, mention the percentage, because I don't think this gets recorded, the polls itself.
Okay.
Just for the record.
Okay, thank you. I will.
And I'm closing the poll here in just a few seconds. 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so we have quite a good distribution with 35% in favor of making information more accessible. Same for further empowering the next generation of internet users to participate in the model, and slightly lower for further supporting diversity and inclusivity. So thanks for casting your preference for this poll. And we go to poll number 8, which is the last poll. And looking at the future of the ICANN multi-stakeholder model, what elements do you wish to see improved in 10 years' time? We have accountability, inclusivity, trust, and efficiency. And again, this is a single choice. Okay, let's see. Okay, it seems that there is an issue with showing the ranking. Okay, here it goes. So we have inclusivity at the top with 45%, accountability and trust secularized 20% each, and efficiency 15%. So indeed, as somebody pointed out in the chat, some of the polls would require multiple responses, and ICANN should indeed focus on as many elements as possible. That's what ICANN is certainly doing. We are just trying to now channel the input that we are receiving from the different constituencies and see where the different constituencies are paying attention and expressing their preferences for. There is a question probably for Michelle about the number of people who have participated in the polls. I guess it is possible, but I leave to Michelle to answer this technicality.
Correct. Yes, it should show how many out of 20 participants have participated, and I have taken screenshots and we'll have those available as well, which I will send to Eduardo.
Okay, Thank you so much. I'm happy, again, I would like to thank you for having us. I'm happy to leave the floor open for any question that you may have with this project that we just started, and we are really looking forward to collecting your input. Thank you.
Okay, don't be shy, folks. If you have any questions, this is the time. We'll be moving after the questions. We'll be turning to Marita in a minute. So please go ahead and put your hand up or speak up. So I'm sure someone has a question for our speakers.
There's David Mackey.
Okay, we got our lineup. I think David is first. I'm sorry, David and Kenneth right after. So David, go ahead.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, it's David Mackey for the record. Thank you very much for the presentation. Really good information, very useful. I have a general question. It doesn't need to be answered precisely, but I'm just curious, what are the number of participants that you are collecting information from across ICANN? Just curious, a rough number would be nice.
So thank you for this question. We are keeping track of this kind of statistics. So this is the third time we share this presentation, this kind of engagement session with the community. We had this session during the ICANN Prep Week, during which, if we exclude ICANN staff, there were about 120 attendees, and they participated in similar polls. And then we had this session during a board workshop during the ICANN 74 meeting in The Hague. And in this case, all the board members participated in the polls and in the process of providing us input. As Negar said, the plan is to really have engagement session and try to reach out to as many SOAC and other stakeholders we can in the coming months with dedicated sessions during ICANN 75 meeting.
Okay, David, do you have a follow-up question on that, or is that adequate?
Yes, no, thank you. It's David Mackey for the record. No, that was just curious. That was perfect. Thank you for the information. Good luck with your engagement work. That's great.
Great. Thank you, David. Okay, I'm going to turn over to Kenneth. Go ahead, Kenneth. Ask your question.
Thanks, Glenn, and thanks for the great presentation. Really informative, as you might see on the list. I'm the non-commercial user consortium executive committee member for North America, so happy to be here and try to follow these calls when I can. So my question, as you saw that I wrote, but perhaps verbally I can be a little bit more specific, because to me evolving implies a change to the model itself. So, and when you talk about a change to the model itself, you're really talking, in my view, perhaps I have it wrong, to the arrangement of stakeholders. Who's a stakeholder? How do you classify them? And how you and how they engage with the organization, with each other? Is that what is meant by evolving? Do we see that there could be some change to that, which has more political implications, or enhancing, to me, has different implications, which is strengthening the existing arrangement? So perhaps it's in the report, and I'm only now seeing the link to it. But perhaps we can have some description of what an evolving multi-stakeholder model would actually entail. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you, Kenneth. Go ahead, Giovani or Negar.
Yeah, thank you, Kenneth. It's really a good question, and I'm going to explain to you the background of this poll about redesigning, evolving, enhancing, or preserving. Is that during the different conversations we have been having internally and externally, those are the four, let's say, actions that have come up as mostly associated with the multi-stakeholder model. So whenever we were speaking with external stakeholders or even internal stakeholders within ICANN.org about the multi-stakeholder model, some of our stakeholders were saying let's evolve the model because internet evolves, the domain name industry evolves, so the multi-stakeholder model should evolve. Others were speaking about redesigning, others were speaking about enhancing, which was what was in the paper of 2020, and others were indeed speaking also about preserving. So we believe that whatever action has to be taken in respect to the multi-stakeholder model should take into account those four, let's say, actions, because it's a bit, as evolving the sense of the evolution, but it's also a bit as preserving the value that is already in the ICANN multi-stakeholder model. It's about also eventually redesigning some elements, because there are some elements that would benefit from redesign to be more inclusive or to make sure that they are prepared for the next generation of internet users. So there is really a mix of, let's say, actions that could be associated to the ICANN multi-stakeholder model. The interesting thing is that the action that is getting most preference to date in the different sessions that we had is the action of evolving. And I hope I answer your question, Kenneth.
Yes, this is Ken Herman for the record. Once again, thank you very much, Giovani. All I can say is that precision in language will be critical here. And I want to try and avoid, as I have in other contexts, people sort of interpreting their own meaning to what these words mean and not really having a productive discussion about it. Because like I said, to me, evolving has a very different meaning, and it could imply a change to the model itself. What I'm hearing is that all of these are efforts to improve the operation of the existing model. I mean, the model involves and is fundamentally composed of stakeholders which are clearly defined currently. And if we're thinking about redefining what a stakeholder means, which could involve part of an evolution process, that would have broad implications. But I think I see now where you're getting at, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Great. Kenneth, you make a really good point. The devil's in the details, for sure. I'm surprised Greg didn't jump into this. Greg's a great wordsmith. I'm sure he has an opinion on the verbiage as well. You know what? I'm going to turn. I don't see any other questions. Thank you, Giovani. I hope you both can stay and Negar to stay for the next portion. So we're going to turn to our favorite ALAC member from NARALO. Actually, one of our ALAC members from NARALO, but she's had a serious passion for the multi-stakeholder model. She has been on this beat for the last couple of years, right, Marita? So we're going to turn it over to you. And then I noticed Sebastian is ready for a question, but he's going to wait till you say your piece before he jumps in. So Marita, it's over to you.
Okay, thanks, Glenn. Thanks, Sebastian, for your patience. Yeah, I've been on this beat for a couple of years now, and I have been the at-large representative or lead person on the multi-stakeholder model discussions. Marita Moll, I'm the NARALO representative on at-large right now. I'm also a words person, and sometimes these kind of polls just make me cringe, as you know, the discussion between evolving and redesigning just now. Yeah, that's a question that's it's in the details, and evolving to me does mean some redesign. The other thing was I did not put myself down as an expert in the multi-stakeholder model. I just said I was had a good knowledge of it. A lot of people here are way more expert than me. They've been here for longer. They know way more of the history and probably where some of the bodies are buried. And so I'm just going to try to impart to you where some of the thinking is on the at-large team, as we've been speaking about the multi-stakeholder model. And we do get into this, you'll see at the end, the finance, operations, finance, and budget work group, when we respond to the annual budget, ICANN's annual budget all of this stuff gets discussed, and we do make comments about where we see there could be improvements, or we'd like to see improvements and things to change. And we have, you got a good description from Negar about all the discussions that have happened since the published, well, even before the publishing of the 2020 paper, just when the discussion started with Brian Cute, we have actually put together over 20 pages of comments on the multi-stakeholder model and the evolution as we see it happening. So that's where I'm coming from, just to let you know. The other thing is I got involved with ICANN because I am really interested in this model. I believe it's very important. I believe it's really unique. I know it's really unique. I want to see it. I want to see it be successful. I also see that I think there are some real weak points and things that need to be addressed going forward. So perhaps we can go to the next slide. So ICANN explains it as their strategic goal number 2, the long-term goal to improve the effectiveness of the multi-stakeholder model of governance. That word effectiveness, again, it's one of those words. What does that mean? And it can mean, and it does mean, a more efficient version of this model, which is absolutely necessary. I think everyone knows this is hugely inefficient, and that needs to improve. And that is happening, and it will happen because a big operation like ICANN needs to make sure that its business model is moving forward in an efficient version. But now it can also mean an adjusted model. And here's where we're talking about evolution, redesigning. I think adjusted means a little bit of both, in that some of that model may need changing. They're going to be difficult discussions in doing that. Retooling, revisioning is other words that we could use. But it's going to mean interrogating all parts of the ICANN community, all different constituencies in how they see themselves represented, and listening to everyone about whether or not they feel their representation in this project is adequate, because this is absolutely key. This model must be legitimate, and it must be able to stand up there to the world and say it is legitimate. No one should be able to point to saying, oh yeah, but this group and that group, they're represented, they make decisions, other group is not really that represented. So legitimacy is key here. And ICANN, it's part of its model in the world to stand up for this kind of decision making. What hasn't been said yet is that ICANN is a multi-stakeholder model which involves decision making. And that makes it really unique, because there are other multi-stakeholder models out there, but they don't necessarily involve decision making. And that is way, way more difficult. I don't need to tell you that. The last time this model was actually adjusted, the way it was put together, it's okay, Sebastian. This is still the first slide. This is going to be the longest introduction. I'm coming to more. The last time ICANN, looked at this model, or the way it was set up, was in 2000. So we're talking 20 years now, and it may be time, or it is time, to actually have another look at how it's working. We'll go to the next slide, please. You will have seen some of this stuff already. Great presentation already about the different issues that were put forward in the discussions that originated from the community discussions run by Brian Cute. We have been hearing about 6 priorities, At large, we work with 11 priorities. Brian Cute's final presentation had 11 priorities. The 6 priorities that were presented, they combine some things. So we saw priority setting and efficient use of resources combined. And we saw consensus and inclusivity combined. We want to make sure at large that each and every one of these 11 issues is dealt with. So we are keeping them separate. We are also doing our own study of priority setting for our community. And so we are working with 11 priorities. Now, these 3, as you see highlighted in red, are the priorities that came through in that document you've been hearing about, Enhancing Effectiveness of the Multi-Stakeholder Model, October 2020. Absolutely key document in all of this. They came through as the ones that were going to be dealt with right on top. Now, it's a good choice already, as you saw in one of the slides. Bunch of stuff is already going on with these particular issues. And it also speaks to the efficiency that needs to happen to get our work done and as it needs to get done in a timely fashion. So these 3, priority setting, consensus, and scoping precision, were the issues that came out on top, and they are being worked on. I think there's just no other way for ICANN to go but to get these parts of the process moving more smoothly. Let's go to the next slide, please. So now we have the rest of the issues that came up in those 11 issues I've been talking about, 6 that come up when ICANN staff is talking about it. The ones that are highlighted in red are the ones that at large has chosen as its highest priorities out of all of those 11 issues. Holistic review of roles and responsibilities, meaning, I guess, we're looking at that little word there, redesign, a little bit pushing evolution, pushing it to say we have to look at actually the way the model is constructed. The other one, representation and inclusivity, absolutely speaks to the legitimacy of ICANN. You can't have a multi-stakeholder system that's going to, that's going to be that's going to stand in the world as a multi-stakeholder system, a decision-making one that doesn't have representation and inclusivity to the extent that it needs to in order to call itself a multi-stakeholder model. So that's high priority for us. I also I enjoyed watching the pre-ICANN 74 webinar. I couldn't attend it that day. I thought it was a great webinar, and the polls came out in interesting ways. Representation and inclusivity was voted as a very high priority in that one. So yeah, you don't know who was I don't know who was actually attending or how many people were attending. Can't tell that on the YouTube. But anyways, interesting that people are aware of the fact that representation and inclusivity is absolutely key here. Can we go ahead to the next one? As I was watching the ICANN 74 pre-ICANN 74 webinar, somebody posted 3 words in the chat. I didn't get the name of the person, but I thought, yeah, this really speaks to what we need to think about around model adjustment. Legitimacy, as I've been talking about. Everybody has to be involved in the process. The power structures and equality, that people are involved in a way that they feel they have an equal ability to participate in the decision making. So that is, I thought those 3 words were really key, and they ought to become, part of how we evaluate the system going forward. Are we actually meeting those 3 concerns? Let's go forward, please. Legitimacy, are all stakeholders represented in the decision-making process? And that is one of those, out of those 11 items, it was representation and inclusivity. And I know this is a really hard part of the work that needs to be done. At large, very much concentrates on bringing in new people, educating new people, putting up new ICANN Learn things, reaching out to the communities. It's very key to our role. I know that it's very difficult out there getting people involved because it's time-consuming and demanding work. But I also know that ICANN has started. I get 10 more minutes before questions. Thank you, Glenn. That's okay. ICANN has started has actually hired a consulting team that's going to put up a toolkit, going to put together a toolkit to see how we can more easily work through this problem. Let's go to the next slide. Yes, next slide, please. Power, is the power equally distributed? That speaks to the holistic review of roles and responsibilities. And every community is going to have a different kind of take on this. And there's going to have to be a lot of compromise and a lot of negotiation around whether or not some of those roles and responsibilities could be or should be adjusted. And we all know that's going to be a tough decision. And Sebastian's going to have some things to say about that and the holistic review that's coming up. So I'm going to leave that to him. I'm sure he's going to talk about it. And go to the next one, please. And equality, creating the level playing field for everyone. Attracting high quality volunteers, getting them engaged, motivated, training, and making sure that no one's left out. This is a part of the work that we're going to be always struggling with. The volunteers come from all walks of life, and they come from all different kinds of professions, and they're all working from very different starting points, which is one of the things that is making things among volunteers kind of difficult. Let's go to the next slide, please. One of the lingering concerns I have here with the ICANN multi-stakeholder system and the volunteer work is that it's very complex and demanding work. And I don't believe that ICANN wants to recognize the fact that there are volunteers working from their business standpoints, their academic standpoints, volunteers working for absolutely no standpoints except that they want to contribute to the project, and making sure that we actually find a way to value this kind of stuff and keep these people and retain them is going to be another task that is going to be part of the future. A few of us, myself and Maureen Hilliard and Joanna Kalesa, wrote an article for Circle ID called Facing the Future of the Volunteer Recruitment, and I invite you to go and take a look at that, and there'll be a little more idea there of what we're actually proposing. Moving forward in the slides, please. Next steps from the end user perspective. The holistic review must begin immediately because that's going to be a difficult. We know that the efficiency things are beginning. We're working on them and they're important, but this holistic review is going to take a long time and require a lot of resources, and it needs to start now. We need to continue monitoring the process, and I think it's great, this wiki page. I took a look at it, this is going to help a lot in trying to keep track of what's going on, and project to consider addressing different kinds of volunteers at ICANN and assessing the value of their work. These are 3 steps of action that come up for me on the next steps from the end user perspective. And the next slide, Peter. Next slide. This may be the last. How to contribute. Yes, let's not end without inviting you all to contribute, since a lot of people are expert, and they're also really knowledgeable about it. We ask you to help us out. Join the Operations Finance Budget Working Group, which tracks the evolution of the model, as I said at the beginning. Next meeting, June 21st at 1800 UTC. I think staff will give you or put in a way in the chat for you to do that. We really need more people working and thinking about this so that we can put in good suggestions in every budget cycle. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you so much, Marita. Next, we jumped into the questions. Glenn, you want to take that over?
Yeah, I've been talking, but I've been muted. You did very well, Eduardo. Thank you so much. Okay, Sebastian, I promised you're first. So go comment/question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Glenn. Sebastian Bachelor speaking, and thank you, Marita, for your presentation. Well done, very interesting and useful. And of course, thank you, NARALO, for organizing this presentation and this exchange, and Negar and Giovani for the presentation. I just wanted to discuss some points in the presentation, page 18 of Negar. It was my question here. It's how you embedded. Who is embedded within what? The Russian puppet here seems to be that MSM is taking care of everything, and I feel that it's not the right way to think, because AT83 is one of the mandated review of ICANN, and is a place where the other things must be embedded, and it's where I think we have some discrepancy. When we talk about the end user, I think it will be important to have, the end user, but all the participants within ICANN, the volunteers, how they are taken care of. We are still staying as it was in 1998 and 2000 with the volunteers. We can't help them more than travel and per diem, and I really think we need to rethink that as we rethink how we evaluate the work and composition of the board member in 2011. And when we take some of the words putting in this presentation, definitely legitimacy, power, and equality must be included. I just want to remind you, for the one who was there and for the other to know that when Fadi Shadi was CEO and president of ICANN, he pushed hard about way to call that equal multi-stakeholder model, and I don't know why, but the equal didn't take off, and I may think we need to push it again because it's something where we need to go. And when we talk about power, I guess we need to think again what was decided after the IANA stewardship transition. I guess we went to sweep the ball in one direction, and maybe it's time to get it somewhere in the middle. And my last word will be, the board is the only place where you have all the stakeholders together. It's the only place where you have everybody. Therefore, we need to trust more the board than we do today, and give them some responsibility to decide, because if not, we will stay in some trouble for today. I will stop here, but once again, thank you very much for allowing me to give you some inputs and for this presentation. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. Marita, did you want to respond to that?
Only that equal multi-stakeholder model sounds like a good idea. It just we just need to keep asking ourselves and reevaluate, rethinking how this is working for us. So by adding that word in there, it'll force us to keep thinking about it. Anyways, I didn't know that, Sebastian, that the previous CEO was pushing that. So thank you.
I'd like to do a call out to our special guest today. We have a number of students from the Ghana School of Internet Governance, one of the leading schools in Africa, led by Raymond Mata, and a very strong group of volunteers with the school. And I noticed Lavash had a comment, and I wonder if he would like to elaborate on his comment in the chat. Lavash, do you have audio? Can you elaborate on your comment?
Thank you so much, Glenn. I'm honored to be here, Lavish on the call. In terms of power being equal, I think the word will not be equal, but equity. Looking at the weights of every person on the stakeholder group, I'm not sure it'll be fair to have equal power, but equity. That's basically what I want to point out to. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Does anyone want to respond on that? Giovani, Negar, Marita, did you have a comment?
Well, I would just say that, yes, thank you for pointing out that equality and equity are not exactly the same thing. And that's another case where the words and their definitions, we have to be careful of the words we use.
Great, thank you so much for Lavash. I noticed Roberto has made a comment too, following up on that concept, referring to global equal multi-stakeholder model. That's an interesting comment, Roberto. Roberto was very active in the last Eurodig in Trieste. Roberto, can you elaborate on that? It's a slight distinction, but it's a very important additional words. Go ahead.
Yes, this is Roberto. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Old computer. I think that the multi-stakeholder model is valid the moment that we have a balanced representation of all the interest. So global is essential because we cannot leave anybody out of the model. So we need to make sure that we get voices in the process that are also not the ones that are traditionally involved in the ICANN processes. So we need to go and look also at the borders, outside the borders of the ICANN community, in order to bring voices that are not part of the ICANN processes. And equal, as Sebastian has pointed out, is that we cannot have a balanced process if there are some voices that are on a sort of minority or are less heard. So we need to make sure that we give the best opportunities to all the stakeholders to participate to the process. One of the typical issues is that some people participate to the process because it's part of their job, and so they are on a sort of advantage. And some people participate to the process because they feel it's a need for them, but they don't have the resources to participate. And related to global, some people might participate to the process, but they don't even know that the process exists and that they are able to participate. So these are the areas in which, in my humble opinion, we need to evolve the model. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. I just wanted to do a shout out on your active participation with NARALO, your past board position with PIR, and last year you were or still this year, you're one of the next gen mentors. So well, thank you so much. Sebastian, your hand is up, and then David McKay, and that will probably take us to the end. Sebastian, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. And Roberto was also board member of ICANN and liaison from ALAC. I wanted just to say a few things. There were a question about, Marita talked about the holistic review. I hope that I am not putting some secret on the table here, but it seems that we will have the opportunity to comment on the term of reference of the holistic review. Some of us, Cheryl, Rhonda, Daniel, and myself included, participate to this writing with Avery and some other board members and staff, and it will be commented, and then it's planned to start beginning of next year. And yes, I hope that we will have representation by each RALO to this holistic review if it's possible. It will be great. It will be a lot of work, 18 months of work, but I think it's important for our group. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Thank you for your insights. Okay, David, you're the last word, and then I'll turn it back to your Eduardo.
Okay, thanks, Glenn. It's David Mackey for the record. I don't really have a question, but I just want to make a comment. Well, a couple comments. First of all, Marita, thank you very much for the presentation. I know you've done a lot of hard work, and I'm getting from this type of presentation that there's value in looking at the multi-stakeholder model, and I know, Marita, you've put a lot of energy to keep that in front of us, so that's good. The general comment I want to make is based on the experience that I'm getting from this particular presentation, as well as the excellent participation that we're getting across the board, not just from, even though it's a NARALO meeting, we're getting excellent participation from around the world in our North American meeting. And I just wanted to highlight that. I find that to be something significant and maybe hopeful that the multi-stakeholder model is something that attracts the right attention with our organization, and it attracts excellent comments, and together we can try to figure out how to coordinate ourselves. And that's all I wanted to say. Is I just am impressed with the present, what we've spoken about in terms of the presentations, but also the broad participation with excellent comments from everyone around. So I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you.
Great, thank you, David. Over to you, Eduardo.
Thank you so much for everyone for participating today and the comments and discussions. I think this type of presentations, which give quite a different perspective on the same issue, it's helpful for everyone to discuss and see variances and decide what's good, what's not good on this. I think this is not a simple thing that we're going to answer today about what priorities here and there, and But I wanted to say that this type of discussions is something that we have the opportunity to see and participate and make our minds and learn more about ICANN as a whole. So I just wanted to mention one point from Kenneth, and one thing about this the comment that he said about definitions, and it's something, you know, about power, equality, equal multi-stakeholder, and so forth. I look at some of the documents around. I'm not sure I saw specifically what those things mean, and I think it's important that when we say evolving or enhancing, exactly what it is, because it can confuse us, and if we get confused, we really, you know, when we look at implementations and issues and priorities, you know, what is it what we're talking about? Enhancing, evolving, power, equality. So, you know, this is something that if we haven't done yet, you know, us, ICANN as a group, we should be defining those words. So, you know, we are all in the same level when we talk and discuss about this. So, having said that, thank you so much for everyone for being here today, and look for next meeting. We're going to bring the blockchain thing again, but this time it's going to be not about theory, but it's going to be a practical trip around how you buy DNS in the blockchain and how you surf DNS and websites in the in that other those universe. So look for it. It will be sometime in August. I don't know the. I think it was August 12th or something like that. So see you then, and thank you for being here today. And thanks for our presenters also for taking their time. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.
This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.